While the 4-day pause is a hopeful sign for many, some humanitarian organizations say that it is not enough. For more on that, I want to welcome Rania Lawendy. She is the CEO of Action for Humanity Canada. She joins me now from Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Rania, we're only a few hours away now from what is supposed to be the start of a 4-day pause in fighting. We've spoken before, we've spoken to others with similar expertise to yourself who I can say with certainty will not feel that 4 days is enough. But does it give you some hope?
Well, it's an important step towards ending this siege and this genocide, but it can't be welcomed honestly until it becomes a permanent and continuous ceasefire. So what all of us are looking for, especially as humanitarians, is that there is a complete ceasefire so that we can actually go in and do the aid that really is needed for this besieged people.
So I know you have staff inside Gaza. How are they doing? Have you spoken to them, and what are they telling you?
So it's a horrendous situation. The state of the humanitarian workers, there's so many aid workers that have been killed. Over 100 have been killed by the bomb. So they're trying to stay alive. They have to grieve their family members who have also been killed. They're trying to at the same time do their jobs and serve humanity and serve their people. And so it's a very stressful situation. We are welcoming, obviously, to be able to have that stop for the next 4 days to try to get as much aid in and to try to get as much aid out to the people as much as we can. But we know that this is a drop in the bucket. We usually have 500 trucks that go in daily without there being this type of siege and bombardment on the Gazans. And so now, and I think the report in November 15th was a little over 1,000 trucks had gone in. We know from our staff at the border that there are about 400 trucks lined up currently trying to get in. And I think a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to get trucks in because, the trucks go in, they're searched and made sure that by the Egyptian government, obviously, that everything is up to par. The Israelis are not allowing still any fuel on. So what is on the trucks currently is water, some food, some NFI, which is non-food items, and some medical aid, like simple medical aid. And then that goes to another border where the Israelis are. They then make sure that everything comes off the trucks. Imagine it gets unloaded. They check everything. Then it gets loaded onto either the Red Crescent trucks or the UN trucks. And then it can go into Gaza. So you can imagine even though there's a huge convoy of trucks waiting to get into Gaza in terms of aid, it is very difficult to get all of those trucks in within the 4 days that they're talking about.
Well, it certainly, from what you're describing, sounds very time-consuming. Just before we came on the air, we heard that Egypt is saying 130,000 liters of diesel and 4 trucks of gas will be delivered as part of the deliveries that can begin once the truce starts. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, we obviously welcome that. We know none of the hospitals or any of the infrastructure is able to function without diesel or fuel. There's no way to get the aid around without that. My understanding was that still hadn't been brokered. So we're hoping that this actually gets through, that the Israelis allow it to get through. This is paramount for the Gazans to be able to have fuel and diesel, to be able to have some of the things work, especially the hospitals. And we know much of the hospitals have been bombed. Over 50% of the infrastructure of Gaza has been bombed. And so it is very difficult to deliver aid in these circumstances.
I was going to say, if that fuel gets in, where does it need to go first?
Hospitals. There's no question.
And if it does go to, if it goes to the hospitals, to what end would that amount, and what kind of difference might it make?
Well, I mean, we know that many of the hospitals have been destroyed, unfortunately, and
Right.
we know, like, for instance, if a hospital was under siege and many other things. So we need to get it to the hospitals that still have some sort of functionality, as well as the medical aid, because the other problem is, even if you have fuel, without having the medical aid there, it becomes very difficult to take care of the wounded. We have over 30,000, like, just so people understand, there's 2.3 million Gazans, 1.2 million are displaced. So imagine the problem with getting aid to 1.2 million in 4 days. This is actually an impossibility. It's completely impossible. We'll try to get as much as we can to as many people as we can, but there will be people who will not get it. Over 50% of these are children. We have over 6,000 children who have been killed. We have over 15,000 people who have been killed. Many of the women, like we know that my brother, for instance, is an orthopedic surgeon. We just heard of an orthopedic surgeon who had to amputate his own child without anesthesia, and the child ended up dying. And so we're seeing a lot of these horror stories coming out of the hospitals because of lack of aid, because of lack of fuel, etc. And when you have 30,000 people injured, what happens when they can't get the care? Those people are going to die. And also to get the trucks there to be able to get people out of the rubble. So we have a lot of people, thousands that are still buried under the rubble, unfortunately, whether that's children, women, men. And so it's a catastrophe like we've never seen, to be honest.
Rania, I have to tell you, every time I've heard, and there have been other stories like the one you just told there about the amputation that are just they are so difficult to hear every time somebody comes forward with one of those stories. Let me ask you, others around the world will be calling for or pressuring or doing whatever you can to try and see this 4 days extended beyond the time period we're being told. But surely you have also spoken to your colleagues on the ground and said, these are our priorities. If we have 4 days, this is what we want to try and accomplish. What, quickly, because I'm going to run out of time here, but what do you hope to get done in those 4 days?
Well, we want to get water to people. We want to get hot meals and food to people. We want to get food parcels to people. And the big thing, guys, that we need to remember is winterization. It is actually cold right now in Palestine, and everyone is without shelter, right? 1.2 million, 1.3 million are without shelter. So getting blankets to them, getting them warm, giving them some sort of makeshift shelter so that they can actually also survive the cold, and also not die of starvation and not die of dehydration, because we're seeing this happening to children and people alike. So, there was literally a girl that one of my colleagues was telling me hadn't eaten for 3 days. She was orphaned on the side of the street. Like, these are real stories that are happening to these children, to these people. And it's important for us as Canadians. I know 77% of Canadians actually want a ceasefire. It's important for our governments to listen. And it's important for us to keep putting pressure on our government to make sure that we get aid there and that we put pressure on Israel to stop this genocide and to do a ceasefire.
Rania Lawendy, thank you very much. That's Rania Lawendy, the CEO of Action for Humanity Canada in Istanbul, Turkey. Appreciate it.
Having me. Thank you so much.